This video is for ages 13 and up, because something's something.
Just look at it. Just look at it.
Yeah, well.
What the heck is that?
Hello, this is Vibe Spies here with a short one here explaining Energon and Superlink, and why this show technically has mediocre or mixed reviews. This is supposed to be a lead up to my Grand Convoy video that will show up later, as I realize how long the Grand Convoy script is. The exclamation of this show just earned itself its own video to talk about. I have watched both series of the show to get a sense of both sides, as I've never watched the show as a kid. I had better things to do, and better shows to watch. What did I watch as a kid? Oh yeah. No wonder why. I slept on Energon and Cybertron. So here's my thoughts on it. Is Energon and Superlink good? Yes. Does this have its own issue? Yes. Is it a good sequel to Armada / Micron Legend? Depends on the person you talk to, of their own taste and experience of the show. Is this the best series to celebrate the 20-year anniversary of Transformers franchise? Absolutely not. I came out of this show satisfied how this is the last bit of Studio Ata's last shine on Armada canon before they start doing Galaxy Force canon, as it is a different studio reusing assets. The ending left me enough reason why I stuck around watching. The way it ends tells us a story of two living and breathing beings who never wanted to work together, now stand tall with the sun overlooking the seawater, and they're grateful now they found each other. That is the bonds of friendship wins the day. What kept me mostly watching the show is the relationship between Kicker and Misha. The two have a sense of bond of understanding each other greatly, and their relationship of supporting each other is such a breath of air sometimes. Misha always wants to help Kicker in any way possible, but sometimes the both of them put a strain on their relationship. Their relationship feels real at times because Misha has her own rules, and what is usually on her mind is work and her research on Energon. She does care for Kicker, and he feels the same way for her. What I typically see in an anime with a clear love interest is the girl is so much in love with our main character that she wants to get attention from her crush, but the MC doesn't see it, or the MC just feels brain dead too, which rubs me the wrong way. I just enjoy having and seeing a connection with someone. The feeling you want someone there who's going to be with you the rest of your life. The commitment that you want to see them again and again, and you want to greet them the same way. Love, in my opinion, is knowing someone you're going to be there and sticking through it to the end. I don't know most people who watch these things feel that way, but I am always annoyed at story writers making a relationship to move the plot forward rather than making a story that we connect to. In all seriousness, the show isn't bad if you watch it today, at least when it aired back in 2004 in North America. It is the 20-year anniversary for the franchise. By continuing the Armada canon, imagine being so disappointed of all the characters you know and love completely erased. Or better yet, not even once resolved. Characters coming back from the dead with no memories from what has changed, a lot of plot holes that will never be explained, and also the English dubbing being more confused than ever. That last one will answer that because they brought in a great cast, but whoever was directing the lines or who was checking the script or not checking the ADR. Whenever an actor is making a mistake and recording a line, it's their job to make sure when I'm recording the voice actor speaking the lines over the footage. One of you guys did this, and I may or may not hold it against you, as we could have gotten some decent voice acting if this wasn't rushed at all. A lot of scripts being translated were also rushed as well. Not just completely ruin an entire character like they ruined Alexis into a shell of who she was. There are sometimes the English script where I was confused or just bored from the English dub that my own dumb attention span make me want to skip a few seconds ahead of an episode on my player because it was that boring. Also, the 3D animation really does turn a lot of people away when they could have used 2D animation on the robots. It just hurts to watch sometimes because these are pretty decent animations when they actually use the 2D animations. It sort of reminds me of panting and stalking at the time where animation was inspired by American cartoons for 95% of the show. For me, I like panting and stalking. The show isn't serious enough for these style changes. Are really cool to watch, and majority of the series kept me up this Dexter Laboratory / Samurai Jack style of animation. Unlike Energon / Superlink, what you're looking at are the 3D robot models that looks stiff as hell whenever they move or they lack animated expression. Some characters like Optimus / Convoy have a mouthpiece that moves but reduces the animation lip flap movements. And also sometimes they don't even use their mouths to speak. This makes it hard to understand who is who and who is talking at times because everyone moves the same way. Also, get closer. Not that close. We all know why Studio Atas did this to save a little money on the animation, but animation is really hard. As it's really hard to animate 3D models on a crunch time. However, do you know what else is more cheaper? Getting an animation team to know how to do 3D animation, or trash all the 3D models of your robots and use 2D traditional animation. Yeah, I would think they would save more time messing around with 3D textures and using this 3D software in a scene export. I think what happened was Studio Atas and Studio of Cat were animating Energon and Superlink when they had the idea of animating the entire show in 3D with 2D elements. They didn't know how to do it. I can see why they wasted so much time making these models and setting up the rigging, and then they realized this is bleeding so much money that they had to use these models in the show. 3D can be a great tool, as we see now, they're mostly used for backgrounds, rotoscoping, or making animation look hand-drawn. Spider-Man, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and now Ultraman are sort of going to that route of the new style implementing 3D and 2D traditional animation. I think Energon / Superlink were about to do this, but realized the time making these animations were taking way too long in order to finish the deadline. But hey, at least the assets, if they ever need again, they can just use them again. So, 8+ for consistency. That was off script. Also, my other complaint of 3D animation is my brain cannot tell who is in a fight. Even though 3D animation looks really cool and a better frame rate than 2D animation, and there are a lot of videos on like how 2D animation looks smooth, I cannot tell who is who in a fight. The only characters that stuck up to me were Megatron, Roadbuster, Inferno, Demolisher before he died, Cyclonus, and Scorponok. The rest were just not memorable or just blend into the background. The wiki articles go full on depth in this, so as you can tell, character model's texture was just not rendering properly in a scene. Animation looks stiff when you're transforming, and emotions of 11 robots that used to be there in Armada are just gone, and it's just using generic lip flaps and movements to very wide B-roll shots. So everything you knew and loved is just a hollow and brick-like. Anything to avoid those lip flap movements and close-up shots as possible, you know? There are times where they animated 2D when Optimus got himself so hard by Night Scream that kicker ass the Energon stars will work. They animated Optimus waking up, which I'm going to take that and run off the sunset. Also times where they animated Megatron's mouth in a 2D sense, which is kind of weird, but also they make him smile, which is also great. I love it. The studio is capable of animating 2D of 11 robots in disguise. As they justified, as the studio said, they did it because 3D wasn't enough to show an emotional moment. 3D isn't easy, as you can see for 99% of the show, but also 2D is also used. is used on Inferno in Pain by Galvatron, forcing his will onto Inferno to become a Decepticon. I mean, those setup episodes are my favorite, as Inferno internally struggles with himself and not become a Decepticon. Also, like, in full notes, the Japanese VA for Inferno is Guts from Berserk, so the more you know. Also, I love when they make Galvatron yawn like a cat for the first time they use the 2D animation. I'll accept that. There are just times where 3D animation isn't so bad, as they also improve later in the show, but in my opinion it's a little too late. Also, a Reborn Demolisher, when he does his fingers, is just adorable, and also Roadbuster getting his helmet knocked off by Inferno, which somehow the 3D animation actually works. Also, North America has done it again by rushing the 2D animation in the final fight between Galvatron and Grand Convoy. Some of the frames are even rushed. What is the point of doing this? Also, did I not mention the title errors in the show? This show is really a mess, and Superlink is really the definitive version of watching it. But it does disregard the VA's work on Energon that they pull off the slop. I do not want their work to be laughed on or angry. Everyone really tried their best to make something work, and we can appreciate the good that came out of this and not think of the bad things. It's just disappointing. So what happened to Energon, aka the canon of Armada / Micro Legend? I went to the bottom of this, and right at the beginning of both shows, if you want a better experience by only watching Micron Legend and not Armada, then continue on to Superlink. Of the beginning of the show is a bit stiff, but in context, what happened to Micron Legend, the series in Superlink makes sense for a lot of what happened in Micro Legend. However, when you are fresh off from Armada train and ready to watch Energon and notice the script is terrible or completely ruin a character that was important for Armada, how depressing in 2004 when this was the only show before we got the Bayformers, Prime, and Animated. So basically, when you watch Energon / Superlink, the show expects that we have watched Micro Legend. The show literally punishes you for not going to Micro Legend than Armada, which shall not be a factor going to Energon at all. Also, I can tell that when the writers quit around episode 20, and they try to extend it a little bit, but the last 12 episodes were just slots to put more toys in so people can buy on their shelves. What I've heard that the toy did not look like their character at all. At the time, though, they can send their 3D models to toy manufacturers, and they can make it. I do not know why they had to do this, but also, it didn't help their case in one bit. I have gotten the Core Class Megatron that came out this year, and possibly will get the redeco of Galvatron Core Class. If this helps promote more Energon and new figures for the Energon show, if that's the case, can they at least make it a Deluxe or Voyager class of Inferno? I will definitely buy it. Please, I am not asking much. I'll be good if you do this for me. I kind of want to break down how Energon was brought over to North America. Kind of had a rough start, so let's break it down. The Transformers Wiki does a really good job, so it helps the community anyway. It's better to put traffic on that site. The anime came out in 2004, which is 20 years of the franchise at this point. What are the only series that came out so far that's decently good, besides Beast Wars and Armada? The internet is pretty new, and so you can't find the Japanese sub of the episode unless you use the dark web or do pro pirating, as it really wasn't a streaming service like Crunchyroll Funimation at the time. Even YouTube did not exist at the time, so there is no way to find good stuff. I am Canadian, so the places that you can watch TV and the channels that we have on timestamps is underneath like Cartoon Network and its sub-show Toon's Eye, or Adult Swim, or Teletoon. So finding anime was hard. The only way you can do it legally is through TV cable and DVD sets. Streaming wasn't a thing. So the way you can find this was through the dark web and pirate the episodes for yourself. I get why people are upset as Animated and Prime hadn't existed yet. So rushing the Energon series was inevitable for North American distributors. As you can see, everyone in the English VA are all talented. And you got Gary Chalk voicing as Optimus again, and the original voice cast, such as David Kay, and returning voicing Megatron, and Michael Dolphin as Starscream, etc., etc. And it's really hard to actually file all this because they're really good VAs, but the problem was that there wasn't a direction in their voice, or what Gary said in the interview, that he liked voicing Beast Wars the most than the Unicron trilogy, as there was more collaboration in Beast Wars, of course. He says during his time in Energon was more confusing because there was not another person to talk to besides doing your voice work. So understand that ADR is a tool that can be used, but it can be difficult for VAs to predict their voice on how they want to be. Plus, I would like everyone to come back together one day to voice their characters again, or something like Team Fortress did, as they like the fandom so much that the VAs voice some of the comics on the internet, or the VAs making videos with each other. It's just wholesome stuff here. Oftentimes, the English dubbing, if you're not the main character, you can hear the confusion of the other VAs saying ums or breaths of air, which the ADR team should have picked that up. It is required to produce 2 good voice recordings for the editors to work with. The nightmare that the editors had to go through back in 2004 to make this work. Not only this happened, and the script doesn't make any sense, it's just flat out destroying a character from a previous show. Alexis is one of those characters that really messed up in the Energon show. I honestly never thought that the distributors this time were the ones gatekeeping us from the fandom and giving us the good show we need, which kind of insults those who originally watched Armada in English. Also, there's a lot of plot holes in Superlink. I'll give you one example. Kicker in the first 5 episodes hated the Autobots and his placement in the world. He believes that he can't fully trust the Autobots and has a massive hatred against them, and his father as well, to save the universe. This kind of goes away as they don't address the fact anymore, but the English dubbing tells us a little bit right at the end of Kicker's resolve, as he prefers chaos, or the return of primordial before there was control, or the nothingness. Kicker prefers the world to have no more fear and no more suffering. The simple no from Primus really shakes me to the core, as if that kind of situation overlooking Kicker, trying to destroy the evil completely, I would say to him no, to him, as we need to control the matter that made up our world. Life cannot grow without control, and without control, there is no way to understand their significance to the world. Also, by having no more suffering and no more fear, a lot of characters in recent media really have tried with a really great backstory and wait to explain why they need to eradicate all evil in the world. We need it in our lives because humans grow and change. If we understand how to get around what scares us, how we're able to get around or defeat it, that is technically the Grand Convoy analysis, so keep that in mind. What hurts the most is not the 2D animation, but also Starscream and Demolisher coming back from the dead. Though, they explain this really well in the Japanese version, so we'll talk about Starscream, as his change is the most significant, as we know of Armada/Micron legend. Starscream died by Unicron, as there is no way to recover anything of Starscream besides his winged sword. When Alpha Q brings back Starscream, they were able to bring back by using a last bit of Energon, but what makes this Starscream different is that his body cannot be in the physical realm. Thus, Starscream lost his ego, and the problem is that they made him as a puppet. The remnants of Starscream Alpha Q brought back isn't Starscream at all. Thus, they named him Nightscream, which makes sense as he is a fractured version of who he was from his previous incarnate. So the change makes sense as Nightscream does not resist, as he is incomplete. Thus, Nightscream is easily molded, where Galvatron was the one who cut off Alpha Q's strings and made his own strings to control Nightscream. The thing is, and sad about, Megatron always wanted Starscream to be, and now that Galvatron finally gets the control he desires from Starscream and his full commitment to the Decepticon cause. The problem with the English version that they still call him Starscream, not Nightscream. The Megatron immediately put his Decepticon virus within Starscream, and now a vulnerable Starscream who doesn't remember what he has done nor who he was. Starscream never learned or remember who he previously was, which insult to the audience who followed his story, accepted the canon, and the reason why Starscream never remembered as he was brought back into pieces. Starscream in Energon / Superlink isn't the same we knew him, as he is a puppet, and he's renamed with his ghostly appearance. Also, they killed off Demolisher right after he learned his own conflicts, as he got to know the humans, and like a protective guardian for Kicker. When he died and brought back, his personality conflict is gone. I swear there's just something going on in the writer's room, because they really want these characters to come back to the Decepticon side and never once defect ever again. Honestly, what they did to Demolisher was a crime, and he had something with Kicker and Hotshot, and they completely destroyed it, and I hate it. What I like about Demolisher before he died is that he cursed the Autobots and blamed why he conflicted and why he cared. It's a fitting end to his character, but there are times where I do love Reborn Demolisher because his little fingers, I love him, he's adorable. So that's kind of my thoughts on Energon / Superlink, as it serves a follow-up video for a Grand Convoy, as I believe how Studio Taz ended his character in a sort of bittersweet and understanding more of himself, even though the entire show was just fluff at the beginning until the end fight between Convoy and Gavatron. I am going to talk about over that video and not here. That is all for you, and I hope you have a nice day. I'll leave you once more. Goodbye. Bye-bye.